Hey everybody, it's been actually a while since I've been able to actually get down here and do anything in the basement, and actually the last few times I've been focusing on dealing with just this horde of South Bend parts and getting that all ready to be photographed and offered for sale, and then of course the Vernon lathe, still been working on that. Want to get that hopefully humming soon, but I want to get back to the Airco welder because other than getting this thing down here and initially turning it on and seeing it's still fired up, I haven't done anything with the welder. And I have to admit that actually last week I did use it. A friend of mine came over with quick and dirty repair he needed done on his Craftsman lawnmower. He's got a riding lawnmower. He loves his Craftsman, and I like Craftsman mechanics tools. They're the poor man's Snap-on, as most people know. And they've always had, the policy's getting a little stricter, but they've always had a really good policy on if you break a tool, bringing it back and getting an exchange, that kind of thing. 10 years from now, who knows if Sears is even going to exist. But I'm kind of getting off the subject there. So the point is that I've never had good luck with Craftsman lawn and garden products. My brother-in-law, he bought a riding lawnmower from Sears. It was a Craftsman that had I forgot what that had in it. I think that had a Briggs & Stratton, and that might have been a Tecumseh engine. And then he bought a snow blower from them, and both of those things wore out way before their time. Actually, in both those cases, I think there were both Tecumseh engines in there. Don't know, maybe that was part of the problem, but there were other issues with it, not just the engine. So, on both of those items, and I was never impressed with their product. But he's so happy with this riding lawnmower. Well, anyways, so he comes down and he's got this idler pulley on the mower deck that's got a spring on it, and it pivots, and that's what keeps the tension on the belt for the mower deck. And where the spring hooks onto one end of the arm, there's basically the flat metal had a hole in it that the spring hooks through. Well, what had happened was, through wear, that spring had actually gouged that hole larger and larger until it finally got to the point where it pulled right through. So you can imagine where the hole was. It was actually a slot cut right by the wear of the spring, right through to the edge. So he said, hey, he called me up. He says, hey, you got a welder, right? So this is something I knew that if I just put it aside, I'd forget about it. And he really needed to get his grass cut. So I just hurried up, ran down here, hooked up the welder. I still had it wired up temporarily the way I had it wired up, so I could run it off my my 50 amp outlet that I've got here in the basement that I was running my other welder and the plasma cutters off of. And threw on a couple of the welding leads. I don't even think these are the leads that came with this welder. These might be the leads that came with the other Airco that I scrapped, the smaller unit. I say smaller, but it was pretty much just as big as this one, the strictly DC one. Oh, so anyway, and then I was like, well, what am I going to use for rods? So I just grabbed this box of rods that I had, and I think these came with these might have came with this welder, or these might have been in. I can't remember now whether or not these came with this welder or whether or not they were in the cabinet with some of that welding stuff that was in the cabinet with the Wells Index milling machine. But these are Uni 7014 1/8 inch rods. And I'll tell you what, these rods here are I don't want to say idiot proof, but I'll tell you, I think a chimpanzee could probably weld with these. I forgot what the 7014 means. I remember watching a video that was really helpful explaining, fast freeze versus You know, the kind that has the, I think this is the kind that you can't use in all positions. I think this is not a fast freeze rod, but what I noticed about this rod is I ran this rod on DC, or did I? Yeah, straight polarity DC, and I think I ran it at, what was the amperage? I've got this main control at about 42, but I think that's 42% of whatever the range is that I've got. So I've got it set on the 20 to 230 range. So I think if you put this at 100, that's 100% of the 230 amps. So 50 would be 115 amps. And so right here I'm probably at 90 to 100 amps. I've got my start adjustment at about 1 3/4, which, if I'm not mistaken, I think the start adjustment it boosts up the amperage on the initial draw of the arc, and then immediately the amperage settles back down to whatever this setting is. And that's of course because I've got this in standard mode, and I've got this, well, the contactor control I also had in standard, which means that the contactor is always closed. What I use is, I use this kind of like a standby switch. So when I turn this welder on, the leads aren't live until I flip this from remote to standard, because I don't have a contactor control plugged in. So anyways, I end up finding out that these rods here, they're almost impossible to stick. They just flow really. You could pretty much drag the rod across the surface and lay a bead. This actually says, for best results, a short arc should be maintained. A drag technique may be used. This is particularly helpful for those with minimum welding experience, me. It is important that the base metal be clean and free of all surface contamination to ensure the optimum bead appearance. So I'm assuming that this rod probably doesn't have a lot of arc force. In other words, there are other rods that have more arc force, so they're better at blasting through things like rust and paint. But those rods are going to be, I think, less forgiving for a noob. Hey everybody, it's May 28th, I think, and it's actually a couple of days since I shot that video talking about wanting to weld with the Airco welder, because shortly after I shot that part of the video, thunderstorm warning popped up and the skies looked pretty ominous, and sure enough we ended up having a thunder shower shortly after that. So I'm glad I didn't drag everything, get everything set up and then end up finding out that you don't want to sit out there with a heavy copper wire in your hand that leads down to a big transformer, basically, because you're just making yourself a lightning magnet at that point. So I've got maybe 20 or 30 minutes to play around and practice running some weld beads and see how the Airco acts. As I had already mentioned, I did a quick repair the other night, and I was using some rods that were really easy to use. Oh, before I get too far, in case I haven't already mentioned it, big thank you to all my viewers. I've gone over 1 million views now. I'm actually like, I don't know, 50 or 70,000 over 1 million already. So that happened quick, and I'm well on my way to 2,000 subscribers. I've got, I think last count, I've got 1,938 subs. So looks like I'm gonna surely, I can't imagine not hitting the 2,000 mark by the end of this year, which was my original goal. And at this rate, depending on how the summer goes, might end up hitting 2,000 by August. Alright, so without further ado, let's fire this thing up. So I'm going to use the same rods that I used for that repair the other night. They were really simple to work with. So these are Uni 7014 8 inch. Technical data. The 70 denotes that 70,000 psi tensile strength. Current AC or DC, either polarity. And I'm running this DC positive. 1/8 inch, 90 to 150 amps, and I think I'm at around 120 amps. I don't know if that came out on the camera or not. Those of you who haven't seen me weld before, if you're wondering what I use for a helmet, I've got the 3M Speed Glass helmet.
I asked you what you were doing. You said, I'd like to practice my welding. That was all.
Okay, now I want to practice my welding for 2 minutes. That sounds rational. Yes, we can go over there and play with Abby. I thought you were coming over here.
Amperage probably isn't high enough because I'm not getting enough penetration and having trouble sustaining an arc. Also, that's the last bit of weld rod from the other night, which probably got wet, so. Got this set to a shade 10. I'm having trouble visualizing the weld puddle, so I'm going to knock it down to a 9. I think this rod, the 7014, must have a really heavy slag coating because it's almost like I can't even see where the arc is so much. It's getting covered up right away. I'm holding my breath while I'm down there. I'm not wearing a respirator. I am outside. Don't tell anybody. Now, somewhere around here I have a slag hammer. Oh wow, you talk about thick, heavy slag. I wonder why I can't see the puddle. See, I don't know. I don't think those look that bad. I mean, I'd have to grind them to see if there's porosity in there and everything, but you know, what the hell do I know? Well, let's see what else I have to play with for rods. Alright, these are the rods I bought for, I think, doing the cover pass on the cast iron repair I plan on doing at some point on the Hendy. These are the US Forge nickel-free cast iron rods that I figured I was going to use for the root pass. These are plain old, good old 6013s. No, that chart on the back is for all. What are these? Can't see. I think it used to say up in that corner what these were. Nah. What are these? These are 1/8 inch. Something with an 8 on the end. I bet you these are 7018s. Yeah, I bet you these are 7018s. All positions AC or DC. All positions, so that's a fast freezing rod. Same amperage range I'm using now. Let's try one of them. Yeah, these are 7018s and they're a larger rod. Dial my helmet back up to shade 10.
Imagine if I actually took the time to prep this metal by cleaning it. Maybe I'm still a tad low on the amperage for this size rod. Yeah, I just checked my settings and I was only at about 115 amps. It worked fine for that other rod, but for this rod's 120 to 200 amp. So I bumped it up, I think probably about another 20 amps. So it should be around 140 amps DC. You know, restarting these rods is tougher too. You gotta kind of bang the end of the rod to break the flux coating off to get to restart it all. And even then, it seems a little trickier. Try coming to the end and turning the corner and going the other way. That just ends up in a big puddle. Pushing this rod definitely doesn't do the pulling it, watching the puddle follow behind it. And then when I turn around trying to go the other direction, bad things happen. The puddle seems to want to try to flow back under right where the arc is. Kind of weird. I didn't change the main amperage control, I just turned up that start control, which is supposed to give it more amperage just at the light up. a lot more impurities on this part of this metal that I'm using. All of a sudden, I'm getting a lot of smoke. Wait. I wasn't really getting before. Alright, let me show you those. So those are the first ones I did with that 7014 rod. And these are the ones I did with the 7018 rod. How good the camera is focusing on those. Alright, the last rod I'm going to try tonight are these part number 1440-0115. But I can't see what these are. Oh, why don't I just pull a rod out and look at it, dummy? Alright, these are 6011s. And these are a small rod. I might actually have the amperage a little too high now for this one, but well, I'll try it, see what happens. Yeah, I think I got the amperage too high now. I think what I'm getting there is what's called undercut. Can't see anything again. Back down to shade 9. That seems to have a very light slag coating. 7014 definitely seems like the easiest one for me to work with. Show you how ugly that is. Alright, so to recap, there's the 7014s I started the night with. There's the 7018s. I forgot. Oh, those are old. And this mess on the end here, that's the new, either 6010s or 6011s. I'm not sure which. If I had a wire brush, that might clean up better. Ooh, well, thermometer says it's only 65 degrees out here, but the humidity is really high. So I'm going to call it a night. And the next time you probably see the Airco welder in action, it's going to be in one of the other video series. Like I've got to weld the deck on that John Deere 185 riding mower and get that project finished. So yeah, I gotta fix a couple of things on my pump jack, my car jack. Well, you know, my jack stand, whatever, not jack stand. Yeah, you'll see it. And then I gotta fix a broken kickstand on the XR100. Off the top of my head, that's all I can think of for now. And then when I get a little bit better with my technique, I'll probably tackle the cast iron repair on the Hendy, which is going to involve preheat and a lot more serious thought. Okay? Good night, everybody.